Yo guys, what is going on? It is Invin here, and today what I'm bringing to you guys is patch 2 from the February PTR here on New World. This update was released just a few hours ago, and it's got some very important changes in that I wanted to bring to your guys' attention. Obviously, you'll see at the start of the top of the page, it says, please note that this is not all-encompassing and is intended as an early look. So obviously, we could see some things change before this fully hits live. But what we are seeing here is another step in the correct direction, I would say, for New World. So it's very, very exciting. And I want to bring you guys a in-depth look at this, what's going on, and kind of summarize what it means for the game. Now, before we fully jump into this one, if you are new to the channel and you haven't already done so, please do go down below and drop a subscribe with the notification bell on. Only about 20% of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribed to the channel. So if you're one of the 80% that isn't and you wouldn't mind helping me out today, a subscription down below would be much appreciated. And without further ado, let's jump into it. So the first thing that is addressed here is endgame. Obviously, you can see that the expertise system has had some changes, and what's happened here is yellow topaz no longer has a minimum drop time. Black gypsum minimum drop time has been reduced from 10 to 5 minutes. Now again, these are just addressed in the colors rather than the actual names of them, so just bear with the notes. Obviously, it's not fully extended yet. Purple gypsum min drop rate has been reduced from 120 seconds to 30 seconds. Increased umbral gained from casts from 3 to 200 to 100 to 400, and increase the umbral gain from crafting from 1 to 85 to 25 to 100, to provide another avenue for players to increase their expertise by adding a gypsum orb that can be purchased from the faction shops once per day. So let me break that down for you guys. So essentially, yellow topaz no longer has a minimum drop time, so that can be dropped as much as you want. Black gypsum, which is your obsidian, that one has had its drop time a reduction, the minimum one, from 10 minutes to 5 minutes, which is making it half the time to get, which is great. And the purple, which is your amethyst, has had a reduction by a quarter, down to 30 seconds, which is a huge reduction and something which I think a lot of us will be really glad to see. You've had increased umbral that you will get from both your gypsum casts, which is now in the range of 100 to 400, depending on your expertise equivalent that you choose to get a cast for. And for the crafting, again, depending on what level you craft at, 25 to 100, which is really good. And also, you'll be able to get another gypsum orb from the faction shop once per day. So it's another way to either get yourself some umbral or your expertise up, should you wish to do that. So that's really good to start off with. Then we've got some aptitude leveling. Here we've got smelter crafting gear now drops from tier 3 aptitude boxes, so you can actually get potentially extra rolls on, of course, your daily cooldown, so your osmosium, which would be really good, which is kind of the main thing I think people will be wanting it for. But of course, when you're just smelting things like your orichalcum and stuff as well, you'll be able to get a chance at higher rolls with that. Also, drops of vicious Azoth now drop from armor aptitude boxes, so you are able to get your hands on a few more of those. General fixes, we've seen ancient armor plates, ancient metallic thread, cold forged buckles were not earnable in-game and are no longer incorrectly listed in the trading post. So they haven't added them, they've just taken them out of the trading post. Created a new icon and new font color for the trade chat channel so that it actually functions properly. Removed the option to use umbral shards to upgrade an item when the item was removed from the player's inventory and in bag on the ground, so you can no longer upgrade a random discarded item by mistake. Fixed an issue where expired orders from the trading post did not notify the player that they would be returned to the town storage shed, so you now will get that notification. And fixed multiple issues involving consistencies and typos in the loading screen tooltips, just tidying that up, which is nice. Now, open world has seen some love here. This is a big section and something quite important. So we learned a lot from lower housing taxes in December and want to further reduce the costs and friction with taxes to players that own homes and have greatly reduced housing taxes. We also increased the amount of company revenue earned from housing taxes to not soften any disruption to their income. We are continuing to evaluate and make optimizations to our overall territory tax system. Here are the changes introduced for the February month releases that are not in the PTR. So they've updated the housing tax minimum band to 0.1% down from 5%, and reduced the tax maximum band to 1% down from 10%. Controlling companies receive 5 times the amount of coin from housing taxes. So interesting one. We've seen a huge reduction down in taxes, down to lower, maximum now is lower than what we were seeing with the 90% reduction, which is kind of crazy. And companies are going to receive 5 times the coin, which is not quite as much as what we were seeing with that 90% reduction, but it is still something which makes the controlling companies have a benefit and the players be able to play, which I think is a really crucial update. Even if this isn't the finished version, I think that needs some tweaking personally, but I think that is a really strong decision and something that all players will be happy to see. Lower taxes overall. Companies that actually go through the effort of defending and owning territories get some benefit from that as well, but it isn't at the expense of other people, it's at the expense of the game in general, which doesn't make any difference to anybody, which is a great idea. Now, Dynasty Expedition bosses now give the same amount of coin as bosses in other endgame normal and mutated expeditions. They were given slightly lower, that's been upped. Fixed a bug that causes some players to be locked out of the chat for a few minutes at the beginning of their session. Still not seen anything on when you've come out of an OPR, but we'll hopefully get that very shortly. Fixed bugs causing the tooltips of infused silk apparel displaying incorrect gear scores. Ensured that the expertise bumps are always granted by the first item drops from expedition bosses. Corrected some debug text displaying on the Starbound Remembrance earring. Speed of teleports into and out of wars has been increased to X, which is really good. And increase XP from quests, level 10 plus, by 50%. So you're going to get really, really good XP from doing your quests now. Fixed an issue causing fire staves and life staves to roll with incorrect attribute perks in Mutators. Fixed a broken collision at Outpost Rush Northern Spawn, allowing enemy players to access the spawn. And finally, fixed an issue that caused players to receive a large amount of poinsettia, adjusted to 4. So some great changes to the open world stuff there. Also, we've seen here some changes to travel. Azoth cost for fast travel has been a pain point for many players trying to complete quests, deposit items, or just exploring the wilds of Eternum. With an already high base cost plus the additional penalties for distance and encumbrance, it could feel like getting the next step of your quest was more of a burden than it had to be. In order to ease this burden on travelling, we are reducing the cost of fast travel as well as the cooldown on recalls to your last inn. So fast travels from towns and shrines will now have a base cost of 20 Azoth. There are no longer cost adjustments for distances or weight, so you'll just be able to use 20 Azoth to travel around. And recall time to the inn has been reduced from 1 hour to 30 minutes by default, so half the time. Now this is really good because it does mean that we are going to be having a lot more of an accessible travel about time. I think that Azoth is used in crafting, it's used still a little bit in teleporting, so it has still got that pinnacle resource, and it is still obviously vital for getting those high-end crafts, which is what most players at endgame will be using it for. So having this availability of a lot more ease of access, especially for players that are leveling or players that are still gearing up, primarily from doing all these elite zones and such, this is going to be a welcome change. So this is really, really good, and I think it allows people to get around the map a lot easier and actually have a lot more of a smooth experience, which is always a bonus. We realise that these changes will significantly reduce the sinks for Azoth and will result in many players having more than they can use in the immediate future. We are also aware that it will result in FCP or faction control point bonuses for certain regions being nullified. While we are planning out ways to address these issues in a further update or a future update, we didn't want that to get in the way of improving your travel experience now. So in other words, they're bringing in the QOL updates. They are aware that it's going to change some of those things. They're going to probably bring in additional ways to use Azoth in the future, as well as change some of the faction control point bonuses to make those ones that would reduce it before now actually worthwhile again. So in the meantime, you might see some people not really going for those particular forts, but once this has been changed, we should see some cool things upcoming, and it opens the pathway for some brand new content or brand new kind of bonuses to be added in to those settlements. Now next here we're moving on to Expedition Mutators. You've seen that they have updated the combustible tooltip text to properly describe the effect on players, and Mutated Dynasty Shipyard Expedition now gives Sapphire Gypsum upon completion, which is good because obviously before it was just Genesis and Lazarus. When you're doing this on Mutated, I think that's something that players will be happy about. Server stuff, we've seen trading and sending gold requires players to be in the same location. If players are in an invalid location, they will receive a message letting them know. They've also fixed an issue causing players to be stuck on the play button, unable to enter their world, and fixed several back-end issues involved with character world transfers, which again is great because we're seeing lots of mergers happening right now. I haven't covered those yet on the channel, but there is a lot ongoing, so if you do want to take a look at the forums for those, lots of stuff happening. So again, to kind of build on that and increase the performance type side of stuff with that is really good. Then we've seen some general combat fixes here, which are resolved an issue causing corrupted priests in invasions to repeatedly navigate back and forth inside the fort instead of just attacking, and updated Keenly Jagged perk tooltip to state that the correct duration. It previously showed 10-second cooldown as the dot duration instead of the intended 6-second duration, which actually means that Keenly Jagged is now obviously a lot better. And for those of you that didn't realize that it was bugged before, now it's clarified that it was, and it's actually a reduced timer almost by half, which is great. Void Gauntlet here is currently a little too effective at locking down and then killing targets before they can recover from the root on Petrifying Scream. We are increasing the cooldown on Petrifying Scream to lower the frequency of this kill combo and lowering the damage of Orb of Decay to make it less likely to kill tougher targets. As Orb of Decay already has many other functions, including healing and debuffing, we feel like it's safe to reduce its damage in this way without hurting the overall viability. So what they've done specifically is Petrifying Scream has had an increased cooldown from 15 seconds to 25 seconds, and Orb of Decay has had a base ability damage reduction from 100% to 90%, so it's only a 10% damage reduction, and Detonating Orb, detonation damage reduced from 100 to 70%, which is what was hitting the hardest. So big damage reduction there, 30% and 10% on the base ability. But overall, like they said in their own post there, the ability to debuff and to heal that comes with this still makes it a very viable thing. And it just means that people are going to have refreshing on if they do want to spam that Petrifying Scream quite as much as they were before. Now, Rapier, we're seeing some changes here. We're seeing a lot of players taking Rapier as a secondary weapon for its defensive capabilities over its offensive ones. While we expect this behavior in a dual weapon system, we currently feel like it's a bit too effective at running away. And as a result of this, we are increasing the cooldown of skills in the Grace tree to offset the longer cooldowns of the Evade. We are swapping upgrades Crescendo and Breathe In so that players using Evade offensively have better access to cooldown reduction. So that is going to affect the functionality quite a bit, and what they've done specifically is Riposte has increased cooldown from 12 to 18 seconds. Evade increased cooldown from 6 to 12 seconds, so doubling. Swapped the positions of Crescendo and Breathe In upgrades. As a result of this change, points in this tree will be refunded and need to be respec, so bear that in mind. Anyone using a Rapier, you will need to respec once this goes live. And Flesh increased the cooldown from 17 to 20 seconds. Now, obviously with Refreshing Strikes or something along this ilk, where you reduce your cooldowns with hits or with evades or whatever you want to do, this can still be a very, very effective weapon. It just means that you've got to parry and fight a little bit more before you're able to dash out of the way. This does still mean it's going to be very effective, but it just means that it's going to be locked down a little bit more. For those of you that do play the Rapier a lot, I think this is going to be a pretty hard-hitting one for you guys, but I'm sure that there'll be an adaptable way, such as I said there, with something like Refreshing Hits, where you can actually reduce this again and still make it a very viable build, but that remains to be seen once this is released into the servers. And then finally here, we're looking at the Great Axe. We've heard your feedback that the changes to Gravity Well on the PTR went too far in terms of reducing its effectiveness, so we went back to the drawing board and are trying a different approach. This new version of Gravity Well includes a route that occurs after the initial pull to help hold your targets in place, and includes a stronger slow after the pull to make it harder for foes to escape the damage pulse without using movement abilities. So the Gravity passive fixed a bug that prevented this ability from functioning, and then Gravity Well itself, specifically, this ability has been reworked from its previous PTR version, improved pulling tech to more reliably pull foes to the center. Foes who are pulled to the center of the vortex are routed for 1 second, increased the slow from 55% to 60%, which is only a 5% increase, but it is going to be beneficial, and slow field duration restored to 3 seconds so that it will last until the explosion occurs. In other words, if you haven't got a movement ability where you're able to escape that, such as the charge from the Great Axe, then you are going to be stuck in that, you are going to take the damage and you are going to be stunned. But if you do have a movement ability that allows you to either negate the damage or dodge out of that area, then you are going to be able to survive that a little bit better. So they're kind of going for a down the middle approach, which I personally feel, as someone who uses the Great Axe a lot in New World, that is a much better solution. It still gives us great viability, still means that in wars we're going to be very useful as a CC component with the Gravity Well, but it's not going to be the OP version that it was before, because this was quite powerful, I will be admitting important to that. So I think this kind of finds a fairly nice middle ground, and it's a much better, at least, suggestion than the first time. So props to them for reworking that. I think that is a really, really good idea. So that is it for patch 2 of the PTR. Obviously, let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think of this update? My personal opinion is that it's, again, going in the right direction. A lot of QOL updates, a lot of nice changes to the weapons. If it's your specific weapon, I can understand why you might be a bit annoyed, because I think, you know, nobody likes their weapon being changed, especially once you've learnt the playstyle of it. But overall, I think it is going to affect the balance of the game in a positive way, which is always a good thing. But let me know your thoughts, like I said, down below in the comments. If you haven't already done so, please do make sure that you drop in a subscribe to the channel down below. I do upload new content every single day, so it'd be amazing to have you guys here as part of my channel community. If you've enjoyed today's video and found it useful for me covering over the notes of the patch 2 PTR notes, then please do drop me a like down below as well, as it really does help to support me and my content here on YouTube. And other than that, guys, that is going to be it for today. So thank you for your time, thank you for watching, and I will catch you again tomorrow with some brand new content. Take care, everybody, and peace.